Okay, welcome everyone to our webinar. We're so happy and grateful that Debbie Johansson can visit with us and guide us. I know that many of you are putting in our chat area that you're concerned about guardianship or SSI or DSPD. And this is the lady that came, and she's the one that will help us through it all. She's a rock star. I do have a little bio, and she's a little embarrassed, but I think that this bio doesn't even do her justice. But Debbie has a daughter with significant disabilities and found that negotiating the necessary programs at transition age, about 18, were difficult. She worked at ATEC, which is Alpine School District's post-secondary school, for 18 years, first as a job developer, and then wrote a guide for families on how to do transition, what to do at transition age. And I know that Debbie just retired from that position, which I'm sad because my daughter just started ATEC, but luckily we're friends and she can help me out here. She became the transition specialist for ATEC and is now working with United Angels, and has been working with United Angels for as long as I can remember. How long, Debbie?
I don't know, about 5 years.
Okay.
So
In the transition to adulthood program. And she works with she has worked one-on-one with hundreds of families at whatever level of assistance they need, and help empower and advocate for them. And I can attest to that statement. Welcome to our webinar today. Thank you so much, Debbie, for being here and providing this service for our families. And for those of you who have jumped on, if you want to put your child's age and what you're hoping to get covered today, hoping to help other parents in the process. Okay, Debbie is beyond incredible. Oh, Debbie is beyond incredible, and we're so grateful for her brilliance. That's not even me, Debbie. That's somebody else. So that's another accolade. Yeah.
I didn't write that.
No, but that's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share the slides, and you just let me know where you. Okay, sorry guys, I want to make sure that no personal information gets put up here. Where you need us to move. Okay, here we go. Share. And okay. Debbie,
all right.
it's all you. Thank you.
Let's get started. I know your time is precious and you've given up a lot to be on this, so I want to be sure that you come away with more than you came with. The first slide, if you would turn, Carrie. These are the areas that we will go through. I won't go into detail in each one, but it'll give you a good starting point, I hope. You can start these at any time you want to. Sometimes life blows up and we're just not able to do Social Security the day they start 18 or the day they turned 18. But this gives you a roundabout age in which you can start things. If you would do the next slide, we're going to start with Social Security because it pre-assumes eligibility for everything else. For a disabled adult child, as of 2023, it is $941 a month that you would receive as her representative payee. You do not need to be legal guardian to start Social Security. I have found that everyone feels so pushed, and I think it comes from school teachers, to get guardianship first, get guardianship first. And I feel bad because they're waiting months and months, sometimes a year or two, to get on Social Security because they think they need to be guardian first. You do not need to. You sign one little form with Social Security granting you the title of representative payee. And that is helping your child with the finances of their Social Security benefits. Most often it would be difficult for our kiddos to manage and pay their bills. So as a representative payee, you would oversee that. If you charge rent, you will get the full amount. If you don't charge rent, your benefit will be reduced by 1/3. I know that feels a little odd. It did to me to think, I don't want to charge my child rent. That's weird. I'm the mom. It's up to you. You don't have to. But I feel like it's a bit of my responsibility as a mom to set my daughter up with the highest amount of services and benefits. So should something happen to me in the future, she will have the most benefit. It would be really difficult for an individual to live off of $600 a month. And it would be helpful for those who are helping her in the future to have the maximum amount. So for that reason, I really don't feel any guilt. And they are 18, which means they are an adult. Another reason why we would want to start with Social Security is it goes along with Medicaid hand in hand. These agencies and programs do not talk to each other. And I have found it, when I started all of this, one of my biggest hurdles was lumping all of these agencies and programs together. And somebody would say, well, did you tell Social Security this? And I would say, well, I told somebody that, but I don't remember. It's important to keep these agencies separate in your mind. Maybe write down, I have a binder that I give to the families that I'm working with individually that has an action plan for each of these agencies, along with my little tips and tricks that I have found helpful, and it changes often. That's why it's in a 3-ring binder, because these agencies and programs often change. So it's easier for me to pull out a page and add a new one in as needed. But there's an action plan that you would just write who you spoke with, what you're doing, and what you need to do next. And that's quite helpful to keep these programs separate in your own mind. And then when life blows up and you have to put the binder away, binder away, you can go back and see what you were doing the last time and pick it right up. So if you are on Social Security, it is a very quick way to also apply for Medicaid. Medicaid and Social Security are the only two that see the same screen. Let's go on to the next slide. Before you apply for Social Security, there's a few things that you might want to be prepared for. So if your child is 17, this would be a good time to get these things lined up in order to have the application process go smoother. Be sure that your child does not have more than $2,000 in his name in any combination of accounts put together. He will not be found eligible if he has more than $2,000 in his name forever. You will need to show 3 months of bank statements. However, Carrie showed me a little precursor of the legislators changing that amount from 2,000 to it's been at 2,000 for as long as I can remember. So it's a little hard to just have 2,000 in their name. There's a few ways to get around that. Special needs trust funds that mean that to set apart money by an attorney, able accounts are one of those, that will not play into the $2,000 Social Security asset limitation. That's a mouthful. Once your child is 18, your assets and your income don't matter anymore. If they start asking you your assets and income, you can say, my child is 18, so he is his own household. That seems so weird when they're still living with you, that they become their own household, but they are. They're an individual, 2 separate households. You may also want to find and enshrine in gold, because you're going to need it. The most recent psychological evaluation. Testing is a huge hindrance to applying for several different things, Social Security being one. DSPD is the other. So to get a recent psychological test, if your child has an IEP at school, it is required that they have a psychological test. Most of the testing will come with a magic number, the full scale IQ number. And that number can kind of hide in that report. Some folks just take a screenshot of the front page and I can look at it and tell you what that score is, but it could be called full scale IQ or FS IQ. For Social Security, they don't have an exact number of, if you have this IQ, it's too high. If you have this one, you will qualify. And actually DSPD, it can wiggle and waggle around, but they all want psychological testing. So if you don't have recent testing, recent meaning in the last 5 years, this is not the IEP, it's separate. The school psychologist will diagnose them. Let's go to the next slide. To get some help with that testing, I hate to spend so much time on this, but you're going to need it. You can ask your school teacher to request new testing. They will not test your child, for the most part, as I have come across, unless it's for educational purposes. If you go to the teacher and say, we need testing because we want to apply for Social Security, they don't care that you're going to apply for Social Security. But if you say, the old testing is old, and I want to be sure that the IEP goals are lined up with how his full scale IQ is. Because if his IQ is high and they're giving him really low goals to achieve, you want to negotiate that to a little higher goal. If his goals are too low and his IQ is high, you may want to adjust those IEP goals to represent what that IQ score is. You can also get psychological testing from a private psychologist. It can be pricey. I paid $2,300 because I didn't know that the school could do it. And every time they'd send me a notice saying, we want to test your child, I'd say, no, that's just, nothing is going to change. So just skip it. Really the wrong answer there. So my daughter had no testing when it came time to be 18 and apply for these things. So I went to a private one. Fortunately, insurance helped pay for a little bit, but oftentimes they don't. On occasion, Voc-Rehab and even DSPD can take old testing and order an evaluation based on old testing. And also Social Security has a separate group called the Disability Determination Service, which is a nice group of private doctors that contract with Social Security to test your child. They don't send everyone to DDS, but they may send your child. Let's go to the next screen. If your child is tested by this nice doctor in town and Social Security sets it up, you don't have to find the doctor. They will. They pay for it. You just have to show up. They will either test your child for 5 minutes or 3 weeks. You just didn't know. You would imagine that the test results from DDS and Social Security would just be given to you. You would think that, but oh no, it's not that easy. You need to request in writing that you would receive the test results. And you do that not from Social Security or the doctor. In writing, you have to let DDS know that you would like a copy of that testing. This could save you thousands of dollars. I spent $2,300 20 years ago. So testing, I would rather pay nothing for than have to pay thousands. So before we're still on Social Security. Let's go to the next screen. So in order to be ready to apply for Social Security, it would be nice to have that psychological testing. If you don't have it, hopefully Social Security's DDS will do so. So here's how you apply to Social Security. It's not a scary phone call. I personally can call agencies and programs and heads of agencies and for other people and other children, no problem. I call for my child and I'm a mess. There is something intimidating. So I'm validating your fears that it's a little scary to call these programs. So I'm going to give you your dialogue in what to say. On the day they turn 18, there's not much reason to call before because they're not going to get benefits until they turn 18. And you can ask different reps and they could tell you different answers because Social Security can be a little bit on the dysfunctional side in the fact that if you ask the same question to 3 different Social Security reps, you could get 3 different answers, just so you're ready for that. I can guide you with what mostly happens with most families. And this is how it usually happens. You call your local Social Security office. You have your child with you, even if they're nonverbal. It's very weird. And make sure you have their Social Security number with you. Don't call the 800 number, I need Social Security, because you will be on hold for 2 hours. They'll say hello, and then you are cut off, and you get to do it again. Call your local Social Security office. You can look it up. If you have a problem with that, let me know. I have a list of all of the Social Security offices. If you're in the Alpine School District, you would go to the Provo office. I can give you that number because I think a lot of you may be, which is 866. I'll let you grab a pencil. 866-366-9549. That is the Provo help desk. If you live in a different area, you could even call the Provo help desk and say, what is my local office phone number? It will say you're only on hold for 5 minutes, and they can literally do anything you need rather than call the big 800 number. So local office is best. And your dialogue is, I would like to begin the application process on behalf of my adult child with disabilities. It's important to say adult because it's a completely different process. If they're not an adult, they will think everything is based on your income. Note the date of this phone call because it is your application date. And if they're found eligible, and to be honest, in the 20 years I've been doing this, I've had 2 or 3 found not eligible. Everybody thinks, oh, I've heard you always get denied the first time. That is not the case. They're talking about SSDI, which is a different program. Your child will be applying for SSI, most likely, unless they have a biological parent who's passed away or retired, or they have an extensive work history. That's SSDI. That typically is not the case for our kiddos. If it is, call me and we'll talk. But typically, our children don't have a significant long work history. And so they would be applying for SSI, just so you know. The individual answering the phone, the help desk line, will ask to talk to your child. If that seems ridiculous, oh well, let them answer the question wrongs. What is your mother's maiden name? I don't know. Let them say, I don't know. Welcome to my world. That's why you're applying to Social Security. They don't know all the answers. They need your help. So don't instruct them over the phone to do everything correctly. I was helping a young man who didn't have parental involvement, long story, and I just coached it. He was on the phone and I just coached him as far as what his mother's maiden name was. That's just how they identify the right person, or even their birth date he didn't get right. The individual on the phone heard me and said, I hear someone coaching you. This phone call is over. Click. So don't coach your child. They don't like that. You could in advance say, if you don't want to talk to this individual, tell him that please talk to my mom instead. And then with that, you can talk to Social Security, but they will want to talk to him. I have even had nonverbal individuals. I'll hand them the phone just to follow directions. There's no sound, and I'll take the phone back and say, that was my child. They don't speak. And then you follow the directions. Overall, my best suggestion when talking to Social Security is to not over talk. Say yes, no, and let there be crickets. It's I want to show that I'm a good mother, and we try to defend our good mothering skills. Don't do that. Don't do that. It will cause more problems. Just say yes, no, and let it be socially awkward because they don't want a chissy chat, really. And you're not going to get personable much with them. So just say yes or no and go on to the next question. Don't defend anything. You may want to give your child's teacher a heads up, email them and say, just so you know, we are starting Social Security, because Social Security will send the teacher, the folder holder, the one who conducts the IEP, a big white envelope mailed to the school, asking the teacher, it's just a little questionnaire the teachers have to fill out, and they would be sending in the IEP and the most recent psychological evaluation. Let's go to the next screen. There's a shortened version of how to apply to Social Security. Basically, after that first phone call, anything they ask you to do, you salute and do it. They may ask you to come in and bring documentation in, which is basically 3 months of bank statements. If he doesn't have bank statements, you say he doesn't have a bank account. If he doesn't have a job and you're supposed to bring in 3 months of his work stubs, you just say he doesn't work. You will need to take in, if that is what they ask you to do. Sometimes they'll do it all online. Sometimes they will ask you to come in. It depends on the moon and stars and what side of the bed they got out on. So it just depends. But whatever they do, you just do. It will take a long time to see anything happen. After this phone call, you're going to think, did they forget me? Because could be 2 or 3 months before you hear from them again. You can always call them back if you'd like. but just be aware that it could take 6 to 9 months to find them eligible. When they're found eligible, you'll get a gigantic retro check back to the date of your first phone call. So it's only in your best interest to make that phone call, that 30-second, no problems with that phone call. Don't be afraid of it. They're just going to ask address and phone number. That's pretty much it. You do not have to prove a disability on that first phone call. So there's nothing scary about that call. So make it right at 18. Then you'll get this gigantic retro check that you do have to spend down in over a period, I believe it's 6 to 9 months, that they don't mind you, because it could be thousands, and they give you a little more time. That money is to be spent on your child. It is not meant for a new car payment for you. It is meant to care for all of their needs. So let's go on to Medicaid. You can apply for Medicaid once you have started the application process for Social Security. This process has changed, unfortunately, dramatically in the last few months. Many of the school districts had an outreach Medicaid representative. Most of them, if not all of them, did not get their contracts renewed by the school districts because of cuts. So unfortunately, now you have a couple of ways to apply to Social Security. You can apply online. The feedback I have received from families that do it online has not been favorable. Because if you make one check mark wrong, you're in la la land forever. You don't know why, you haven't heard from them, you don't know what you did wrong, you don't know anything. If I were you, I would find your local Department of Workforce Services. That's the agency over Medicaid. That phone number 866 is, I believe, the Alpine School District area, but there are 16 different locations. So if you don't know what your location is, you could call that 866 number and clarify which location you should call. They will always say, you can do it online. And your dialogue could be, no, I'd rather do a paper application and bring it in. The reason I like that is because you will then fill it out the best you can. You can scribble in the margins, and I have directions on how to fill it out, but it won't even answer every question because I don't know your tax filer ID information. So you will have questions on that application, but you take that scribbled on application, writing, I don't know about this, help me out. And then you walk it in to the Department of Workforce Services and you ask them. And then hopefully they will give you the correct answers, and then they can input it into the system correctly. I have found that a more effective, positive way to apply for Medicaid. You don't have to do this right away. Some folks just focus on Social Security first, get that done. It's a little overwhelming to try to do it all at one time, in my opinion. This will provide medical coverage. And if they already have coverage for Medicaid or private insurance on your insurance, Medicaid would become the secondary. So sometimes this is not a super critical do it right now thing. I would personally probably do Social Security first. With that, let's go on to DSPD, the next slide. DSPD is, I think they're a fairly friendly group. I don't think we're all so afraid of DSPD, but I think it's not as bad as we think it is. Yes, there is a terrible wait list, but it is so worth it once you get services. What DSPD is, it stands for Division of Services for People with Disabilities. That's actually a terrible name. Every state has a Medicaid program such as this, but they're all called something different. They're all administered differently, applied for differently, and have different services. So every state, if you move, you get to start all over if you move to another state. But what it does is provide long-term supports that will follow and can change as they change and as they get older throughout their life. This is what will help me die happy. My worst fear is for my daughter to end up in a care center. And I just, sometimes that is what is necessary. I can't say that's horrible for everyone, but that's not what I'm hoping for my child. It would not be leading her to her most self-dependent and independent life. DSPD will provide services that will help them be as independent as possible. So as long as you are on services with DSPD, that care center warehousing type thing will not happen because they have other programs that are much better. And I would suggest doing it for your own peace of mind. There is a terrible wait list. That wait list changes constantly. Yes, there are thousands on it. It is, you apply and are put on the wait list. You come off of the wait list onto services, and they do have some services for those on the wait list, sometimes respite for a year, which is always helpful. But you get off of the wait list according to what your critical needs are. So typically, a average wait list might be 5 years. It could be as long as 20 years. If you don't show that you need services, one of my records for helping a family is 7 months from the time they applied to getting services. They had significant needs. Once you're on, I can't tell you how good it is. There are many, many categories of help that DSPD can give you. One that younger ones typically like is respite, where you can go out and do things that you can't typically do with your child, which is maybe caring for your parents, going on a date, going on a little vacation, working, spending time with other children. There's a lot of reasons why we need respite. Sometimes I needed respite to sit in my closet and just have no sound. Respite will help rejuvenate you to be more productive when you have a little break. DSPD can also help your child long-term supports through one of their programs. Don't think that DSPD is taking your rights away as a parent. I have found it to be completely opposite. Once you come off of the wait list, you will get a support coordinator. And I have found I've had a couple of support coordinators, both have been great. You get to choose which one, and they help guide you with what services there are and what you need. I would say, because most of you folks have children closer to 18, I would suggest going straight to the category of supported living. Couple of reasons. Supported living is how you would access caregiver compensation at this point, where you could get paid to do the things you're already doing. Supported living pays in the area between $20 and $22 an hour. Respite is significantly less per hour, and supported living can be pretty much cover everything: driving your child to work, staying with them when you are away and doing other things. My daughter is on supported living, and I have a worker, and I also do some caregiver compensation, where her worker, if I'm not available, can go over and help her. She lives in her own apartment now, and she's over a lot. She's with us a lot, but she does have her own apartment or townhome. She actually got married. That would have never happened. It was not on my radar, believe me. But I want my daughter to be happy. I want her to live the fullest life. She's not going to be having children. That's something that I could not do, and I don't think she could do. Her husband has some disabilities as well, but DSPD is the only way I could see that she could pursue her dreams like that. They've been married 3 years, and it's amazing. But she does need support. She could never do that without support. She couldn't do her job without some supports. So it does not take your rights away as a parent. Those decisions were made. I am legal guardian for my daughter with a lot of thought and preparation, with my daughter together, making those decisions. That is not in the realm of possibility for everyone. I didn't think it was for me either, to be honest. It was the last thing on my agenda, but it has turned out really adorable. They're so happy. Why should you apply? I think I've gone all over those, so let's go to the next slide on how to apply. It's an easy phone call. There's the phone number. You would just say, they're a lot easier to work with than Social Security. I like these gals and gentlemen that work for DSPD. They're overwhelmed, but I have always felt like your child's best interest is what their best interest is as well. So you don't need to be afraid and careful about that first phone call. You don't even need your child with you. When you call, you would say the same thing. I'd like to start the application process on behalf of my adult child, or almost. If they're not an adult, don't say that, because you can apply from birth on up. So they don't need to be 18. You could have done this at birth. If you would like some hand holding, a cheerleader, I can even go through the entire application. I was on the committee that wrote it in 40 minutes. So many families agonize over this and put it off for years. Just call me. I can email you the application. That intake line can email you the application. 40 minutes on the phone with me. I'll help you through line by line if that's what you need. I'm happy to do that. I don't know that everybody needs that. I wish I would have had that. When I was going through this, it would have calmed my nerves and helped me know I was doing it how I was supposed to do it. So I'm happy to help you do that. Voc-Rehab is next. I'm sure there's 1,000 questions about DSPD, but I think we'll save those for the end. Let's go on. Why should we apply for Voc-Rehab? You can do this anytime you want to, as early as even 14. Their main goal is to help your child find employment. Why does your child need to work? I originally was a job developer for Voc-Rehab and for ATEC. I personally think working is the bomb. It helps your child feel like everybody else. They don't have to work 40 hours a week, and it's what they can do. If they are not mobile, there are things they can do for an hour or two a week, even from home. You can even set up a home employment situation. I prefer, when it's possible, to be out in the community. It helps your child feel a part of life, doing what everybody else does. And yes, you can work and get Social Security. There's a method, and you will want to know what the rules are, but yes, they can work. It can affect their payment a little, usually not a boatload. And if they're a student, they would have the student earned income exclusion, which is kind of a different thing. So I think it's important. It's also the best respite. My daughter has worked for years and years, and it's fantastic because she's like everyone else who's working. Yeah, it does look a little different. Let's turn to how to apply. Next screen. Many of the high schools and post-secondary schools will have a transition. So that's different than a regular Voc-Rehab counselor. A transition works specifically with the younger group. I think they go to age 26, actually. You would call the main Voc-Rehab office. That's the one in Provo, but you could call them to ask for your closest one where you live and to turn in an application. Those applications are pretty easy to get online. And you would call them to make an appointment to bring the application in. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. The schools often have their own transition counselor. For instance, ATEC, which is the post-secondary school for Alpine. I know a lot of the other school districts have their own transition rehab counselor. I would suggest using, so ask the teacher if there is a Voc-Rehab counselor assigned to your school, because it's a lot easier to go to the meetings if it's conducted at the school. It's just easier if that's what your transition counselor does. They do that at ATEC. And what they don't run out and find your child a job the first day. It takes a long time. They will start going to your child's IEP meetings. They do it all the time. This is not a weird thing. And one of the reasons they do this is to keep the IEP team unified in choosing goals that will best represent what your child wants to do for a job. The counselor will chat with your child and you, mom or dad, to know what types of jobs would be the best for them. Do they like quiet jobs? Do they like inside jobs, outside jobs? Can they write? Can they speak? What are their talents? I truly believe that if you can get a good job match that makes your child happy every day to go, or how often they go to work, that child will be at that employment for years and years and years. They don't just throw your child into a job. You will have it kind of is a misnomer because it sounds like IEP, but it's actually an IPE. These acronyms will kill you. That stands for a plan for employment. That means they've identified that your child is ready to work in some capacity, and you will then choose a vendor, which is a company that will help your child go out and find a job. You will have the deciding say in which vendor to use. So it's a company that hires job coaches or job developers that will help find a job for your child. And they can find jobs for individuals that you would not suspect could do a job. There's lots of jobs that people can do. I'm pro working, really pro working. They will help train your child. They will go with your child only to the point that if your child is super high functioning, they're not going to do as much because you want the child to do as much on their own as possible. If your child needs a job coach with them every minute for every shift forever after, that's not a good job match. You want your child to do something as independently as so you may want to spend quite a bit of time with your Voc-Rehab transition counselor in determining what that could look like. Years, it could take years. Voc-Rehab can pay for things that you may not be aware of and they may not tell you. They can help pay for transportation while they're job training or looking for work. They can pay for the bus pass. I have even had them give vouchers to JCPenney because the child did not have appropriate clothing to interview with. So they wrote a voucher out with that for that family to go get clothes to interview. If your child is not stable enough to get a job, they may suggest and pay for counseling. They sometimes can pay for psychological testing, not all the time, but you can push. If your job goal is to be a veterinary tech, there are programs and MTech programs that teach a class. You can have Voc-Rehab pay for that class. There's a lot more to that. You don't just say, hey, pay for it. You kind of need to get a couple of different schools, how much they cost, learn what the application process is, what will be necessary for your child to do. Are they capable of doing that? If they want to be a vet tech, is there a veterinarian that would likely hire them? It needs to end up with a positive job establishment. They can also pay for tools. If they wanted to work at a bike shop, oftentimes the child would need their own tools, and that's a necessary part of that job. Voc-Rehab could pay for those tools. Just so you know. Let's go to the next. I'm going to take a little drink here. Sorry. Guardianship is next. We are very lucky that the process of getting guardianship has been simplified beyond what my wildest dreams would ever been. This was a big nightmare for me on the horizon. I put it off. You don't need to be guardian to do any of the things we've chatted about so far. Social Security, DSPD, Voc-Rehab, you don't need to be guardian. I think it's necessary to get guardianship, but don't let it stop you from starting the other things. Why do you need guardianship? Because your child may need assistance in financial and medical situations. The only time I have ever used my guardianship was when my daughter, 4 years ago, had a massive stroke here at home. It had never happened before. It wasn't something it didn't even have to do with her disability. She had a stroke from a hole in her heart we didn't know she had. So the ambulance takes her to the hospital. She's in the ER room with me, and the doctor says, "You have had a stroke. We have a shot that will help lessen the effects of that stroke." And my daughter says, "No, I don't like shots." They could not give her the shot. However, I fortunately just weeks before had double, triple checked that my doctor and my insurance company, her insurance company, had that documentation. And some will have their own medical paperwork as well, in addition to the guardianship papers, that will allow you to say, yes, give her that shot. I was very grateful that she was able to get that shot, even though she had 31 days in the hospital, because she had private insurance and Medicaid, which I'm so glad I did as a secondary, because 31 days in the hospital, we'd have lost our shorts on that, even paying for the secondary part of it. So I was very glad we had Medicaid lined up and guardianship. I was old school. Your child needs represented by an attorney, and you. So that's 2 times a lot of money to hire lawyers. You can take classes from Guardianship Associates. I did the first way. I did the number 1 way because there were no other options at the time. I paid an arm and a leg. You can actually get, and you do have to pay for classes from Guardian Associates. Last I heard, I would highly recommend, above the other 2, do number 3. I have had constant feedback from families who have done the online court assistance program that it was so much easier than they ever dreamed it would be. You would, through this program, the program costs $20, and there's a cute little animated person with a pointer that says, "Write this on this line." That's my way of filling out applications. They will have you attach different documents from the doctor and so on, but it'll walk you through it line by line. If you get a little stuck and have questions, that a court assistance program is not addressing your individual questions, you can go. I was thinking that phone number was on here. There's a self-help line that you can say, "I'm on the online court assistance program. I have a question." That phone number is their website that you get the program on. But the self-help program, the phone number is 888-683-0009. I found them to be very helpful for lots of legal questions. My daughter getting married, I had a lot of legal questions, and they emailed me the exact law as it was, I pertained to my situation. So they were helpful. You can also email them at self-help at utahcourts.gov. If you need those again, just call me. On that program, let's turn the page, next screen. The program is $20. The filing fee, if you do it before age is 22, but they're a little wiggle waggly, they can extend that to an older age, I've heard. It would typically be $360, but on this, they waive that and your filing fee is only $35. So that's just $55. They will teach you how to represent yourself. That's called pro se. So that means you only need one lawyer now to represent your child. Towards the end of that program that you can start and stop at any time, just save your passwords. Oh, there's the phone number at the end. You can stop and start at your convenience. It's rather lengthy. I've heard, I didn't do it, but I've sat with folks as they've been doing it. And it's really pretty self-explanatory. You have an opportunity at the end of the program to request a reduced fee attorney. And you can even ask for a free attorney. It will take us several months longer to get one of them to do it, but it is possible to get guardianship for $55. I've seen it happen often. I even had one mom who said, I don't have money for the court filing fee. And the judge just waived it. So if the money is the situation, the feedback from other families has been overwhelmingly positive from this. I haven't had one family that did not say it's so much easier than I thought it would be. And you don't even, as of right now, it could be different later, but one of the positives out of COVID is you meet with them virtually. When I stood in front of the judge with my lawyer on one side and my husband and I, then Katie and her lawyers on the other side, I was shaking in my boots in front of the judge. And all he did was look at Katie at age 18 and said, Katie, do you want your mom and dad to help you out? Yeah. And that was it. And I thought, I have suffered for years of worrying about this. So feedback from other families as well has said, this is not a horrible thing. I don't know if I've addressed every question, probably not. And I may have some answers additionally. So you are welcome to give me a call. I don't even know how we doing on time. Oh, we're doing really well. Let's go to the next slide. Education. You will want to be thinking now of the future when after grade 12, what your child is going to do. You may want to get a certificate of completion, which means it's not a diploma. Many high schools will allow them to walk with their class at graduation, but it's worth finding out if that is possible for your child with your school district. I sure hope so. So they are handed, instead of a diploma, a certificate of completion. And I understand there can be several different categories now of high school diplomas. I'm not an expert in those. However, you want to be sure that you understand that if they get their high school diploma of any type, the school district is done with you. Then they are on your sofa every day. And you are filling in the gaps. If they get a certificate of completion, then you can access school services through the age of 22. They would exit this semester after their 22nd birthday. If that means they will go to your district's post-secondary program, if I were you now, I would go see it. Ask for a tour. Ask to have the director of that post-secondary school take you on a tour. See if that fits your child. I personally, at the time my daughter was leaving high school, there was not a great program at that time. There is now a fantastic one because I worked for them. So I wish she could have gone to that program, but at that time, it wasn't as excellent as it is now. But I wish she would have had that advantage of all the independent skills that they. Okay, I'm seeing a little pop-up, Julie. Thank you. So if they receive an alternate diploma, they can stay in the school district. So there are several different new options. Thank you, Julie. But I would research and chat with your IEP team what is best for your child. If in their future, they would like to attend college, oh, I am so thrilled with the opportunities there are now. At UVU, they have brand new Wolverines Elevated. I am so thrilled with that. That also in Logan at Utah State, Aggies Elevated. There is opportunities at MTech. However, there are entrance exams at ATech, depending on your child's abilities and his wants. You know, it's time for him to be happy as well. There's also separate academies such as Scenic View. I would like to caution you to do homework on this. There are some advertisements claiming to cure your child of autism. And I would beware of those. They are also can be quite expensive. I would just really research it extensively before you pay a lot of money. I can attest to the Wolverines and Aggies, what an outstanding program that is. And I would urge you to really give a lot of thought now to what direction you're going to be going after high school. And it can be different for everyone. I have just touched upon a lot of different things. So Carrie, if you wanted to open it up, I'll do the best I can in answering any questions. I would be happy to do so. Carrie?
Yes, we have time for questions. Please feel free to either unmute your microphone or you can use the chat and I'll read your question from the chat.
How do you guys?
Hi, this is Julie.
go ahead.
Okay, I actually have two questions. So when should we start the process of applying for guardianship? How soon before they turn 18?
17 and a half.
Okay.
17 and a half, which is an odd number, but that's what I have been directed to is 17 and a half, which gives you 6 months. It won't, I'm assuming it would not take effect till they are age 18.
Okay.
But it could take that, amount of time to gather all of the information and documentation maybe. But but you can start at 17 and a half.
Okay, thank you. My next question, Debbie, is in regarding to work.
Mhm.
So my girls are just starting a little work internship and they're going to be paid. We just got them bank accounts.
Mhm.
As long as we stay below that $2,000 threshold, is there any problem with them earning money? Like, will it disqualify them for anything or show that they have?
That is a fantastic question, and it's an important question to know about. It can affect their Social Security payments. They would not lose their Social Security, most likely. But I mentioned it's important for you to know the rules of working and keeping your benefits. And there is a fantastic group agency called the Utah Work Incentive Planning Service, or UWIPS. They are fantastic. You can apply. I have the application. I also have a general contact number, but you would apply to go see them. The first time you visit with them, you will assign authorizations allowing them to look in only your child's, not your mom and dad's, because they don't care about you, only your child's Social Security records. Just because there's a lot of different categories and different ways that your child's Social Security could look, depending if the parents are retired or passed away or work history. But they are the gurus in how to, everybody wants me to give a dollar amount. If they earn this much, this will happen to their Social Security. I wish it were just a dollar amount. It's a formula where they go through 9 trial work periods of earning a certain amount. It's a very complicated kind of process, and I would suggest going to see them. I've gone back to them 3 or 4 times because I wanted to be sure I did it correctly. And they are looking out for your best interest. They are not the Social Security police. They are actually the ones that tutored me on paying rent and maximizing all of the benefits, Medicaid and Social Security, and more, actually, such as, here's a little program that they could tell you about. If your child is considered a full-time student up to the age of 22, they would receive student earned income exclusion. And that's where Social Security will not look at the first about $8,000 that your child earns. That will not be put into the formula of how much the working will affect their Social Security benefit. I know it's really complicated, but that's one benefit. So if they're working, you let Social Security know they are a full-time student. If that internship is a paid internship, but is meant to teach job skills, it could possibly, one of those examples could be DI, for instance. That is teaching job skills. That work would be considered a different category and would not count in the same way as a regular job would, because it is a training work site. So I don't know what the situation is with where they're working internship wise, but overall, I would go see Utah Work Incentive Planning Service. Another cool thing about working is there's a separate program called EPASS, which stands for Employment related personal assistance service. And there is no wait list for this. It is if your child is working a minimum of 10 hours a week, 40 hours a month is all. They're on Medicaid. They have been deemed disabled through Social Security. You apply for this program and you can hire a personal assistant, or you can do it yourself. So a parent could get paid for this. It's not the same thing as DSPD. It's a separate program. You can use this while you're on the wait list. But if you have the opportunity to get off DSPD wait list and go on to DSPD, usually DSPD is the better route because it follows them throughout their life. This is all work related. This is all things a personal assistant could do to help your child maintain their 10-hour-a-week job. If your child is working, they have to have clean clothes. So somebody needs to help with laundry. If they're working, they're getting a paycheck. Somebody needs to help them with banking and paying bills. If they're working, they need haircuts, their nails trimmed, they need to go to the doctor. Somebody needs to stand in line for getting prescriptions. They need to be fed before they go to work. So someone needs to help them shop and cook. Those are all work related duties that a personal assistant could do and get paid through this EPAS program. I know of one individual who works 5 to 7 Monday through Friday. That's 10 hours a week. His mother applied for EPAS, and you list all. I have the questions that they will ask you if you want a copy of them. She gets 33 hours a week in personal assistance to help her son maintain his 10-hour-a-week job. That would also include driving your child to and from work as well. So working and keeping your benefits, the main program I would suggest in learning those rules would be going to see UWIPs, because they could help you decide if the training site is a job training site or is it a regular company internship, and how many trial work periods they've gone through. I don't know how one would determine that on their own. So I would have to go to UWIPs. They're a nice group. Dana Margot, Dana, excuse me, I always get that backwards.
So they don't have to be 18 to access that.
No.
Okay, fabulous.
That I'm aware of. You're to go see them. Your child needs to be on Social Security. They need to have at least a promise of a job and be on Medicaid.
But don't they have to be 18 to be on Social Security?
Yes.
So then they would
unless
need to be 18.
unless they are on their parents' record, they could be on Social Security if their parents qualify most of the time through low income.
Okay.
So they actually could be on Social Security before 18, but only on their parents' record. I would have to make a quick phone call to double check myself on that, Julie.
Okay, I'll email you.
Okay.
Debbie, we have some other, about a handful of questions in the chat. One is from Steve. How long does the guardianship process take if we go through OCAP?
As fast as you want to go through it. Stay up all night and do it one night and you're done. Most families spend several hours. It depends if you have on your fingertips the documentation they would like. But you could spend, several hours, many hours. I'm guessing because I didn't do it. I have not heard complaints that it was overwhelmingly long. Virtually everyone said it was easier to do. You can also call your local county courthouse and ask to talk to the county recorder. I have the phone number for Utah County, and question them how long it takes to get a court date. If you're trying to push that date sooner, you could be in contact with them and maybe get on their docket a little sooner and finish that paperwork. They may give you a little push on getting it sooner and getting it scheduled.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Our next question is from Elena. We were told my son would get a certificate of completion and go to Bridges in Springville after this year. I don't know much about the program, but I've heard it's really good. Any comments?
I have heard the same. I visited Bridges. It's the post-secondary program for NEBO, I believe. I like the program. I haven't heard a lot of complaints about it. Again, though, to ease your thoughts and forward thinking, I would ask to go visit and see it. That's, I think, of an important thing. But I have not heard negative things. Honest. Someone's given me a thumbs up. Awesome.
We have a comment in the chat from Teresa. I just wanted to mention that post high school may not go until they are 22.
Federal law says school districts are required to provide an education to the age of 22. Alpine School District has determined that to mean the semester after 22, but that is a federal law.
Thank you, Debbie. And then our next question in the chat is from Trish. I understand that Voc-Rehab has a limited amount of time your child can receive services. So should I wait to start receiving their help until he is closer to 18? Is that correct?
It wiggles. Of course, they don't want to put your child in a work situation that is not going to result in a positive experience. You don't want your child to be in a work, especially the first thing off the bat, in a work situation that is not positive. So I would not be throwing your child into, I'd be picky. I'd be really picky. If you put your child in a work situation knowing it's not going to be a good thing, and then asking Voc-Rehab to do the whole thing over again, have them do it over and over and over again, they're not going to like it. Whether they absolutely refuse, I'm not so sure is what they're allowed to do, but they may take a long time the second time around. I don't think they can refuse. But I personally would hold out for a job that fits your child. The Voc-Rehab vendors get paid a lot of money to find your child a job. They can quickly put them in any old place and close the case, and they get paid. Or you can find a vendor who works very hard in discovering, and it is called discovery. That's what a job developer would hopefully do with your child. Discover what their little geniuses are. Where do they find the most joy? What are they good at? They would try many different ideas. And when I was a job developer, I would go and talk to the employers, let them know that this individual will be applying, and I would go in advance of hiring the child. I am just weary of throwing a child into an unsuccessful employment situation. I would rather not be employed until it's a good job match. I don't know if that. Your original question was they're only going to do it once. They may give you that impression, but I believe they have to do it again. They may take a while, but they will want to close the case. Once job coaching is below 20% of the time the student or the individual is at his job. When I was job coaching, maybe the first week, I would be with them 99% of the time. Then I would wean off, making sure they knew what their job duties were, and start to back off because they need to eventually do it on their own. And when it got down to 20% of the time being worked was my job coaching time, just 20% or lower, they would start considering closing the case.
Thank you, Debbie. We have one last question in the chat, but Teresa, I also see your hand raised. Would you like to unmute and ask your question or additional questions? You're welcome to do so.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. I just wanted to I asked that question about or made the statement about not being able to stay into the post-high school program until they're 22. That was my understanding when my kids were little. I always went, anytime I went to seminars, they would always say that they would be able to be serviced until they were 22. So that was my expectation all throughout their school years. I have two older sons that went through. The first one was able to be serviced until he was 22. My second one, I was anticipating that he would also, but since he had less credits available to get his diploma by the time he was 21, this through his IEP process stated that he has had enough time at the post-high school that they can't service him anymore since he's obtained those credits to get his diploma. So he ended up stopping 6 months earlier than I expected. So that's why I want to bring it up, because it depends on how for some that are severely have severe disabilities, that is it's expected, and that is planned on that they will stay till they're 22. But if they're maybe not as have as extensive as disabilities, depending upon if they get their diploma, that it depends on the credits that they are able to account for to get their diploma.
That's a wonderful point. I'm glad you said that. Once they get all of the necessary credits, they will be done. Sometimes a school district can be a little sneaky, and your child could be getting those credits and then suddenly they're done. And
yes.
And that
I've had parents that have only gone like for 6 months, and their kids have been out. So
yeah, they can be. It's a lot less money for the school district if they're done. So I would absolutely make that a point in an IEP meetings, and that's a legal document that you want to know in advance what goals are being used for high school credits, if that's even the case. That's pretty sneaky, if you ask me. But yeah, once my daughter had only what was it, a half or a quarter credit of work experience left to get her diploma. Well, she wasn't done cooking, if you asked me. So I just didn't turn the paperwork in for that last quarter credit.
Yes, and if the other part that they want to also know is that depending upon what classes they substitute for, they might make their resource time, their functional skills time count towards certain credits for their high school that I didn't anticipate for, is another way that they can show that they're getting enough credits to graduate.
Teresa, that's an excellent point, and it sounds like it's coming up more and more often. And perhaps I should add a little notation in my chatting with families about that. That's an excellent point, and it sounds like that ideology with teachers is accelerating, and kids are being exited without full closure, really.
Yes.
That's a dirty, rotten shame.
And just as a suggestion for the other participants as well, is that when one of my sons was in post-high, when we were being in there, his teacher, I was discussing with Voc-Rehab about him getting a job, the teachers felt that he wasn't ready, and we needed to not pursue it. But I went and talked to Voc-Rehab and mentioned that I felt like he was, because he had been going to a work site through his functional skills class, and he did really well there. And so I actually went to the employer and said, would there be a way that he could have a job? And they said, yep, I'll see that it's done. So I would say he was ready, and even though Voc-Rehab, they were able to assist him with the job coach, and even though the teachers told me that he wasn't ready and wasn't supporting that, he's had a job for years now.
I don't think I'd want my kid to have your teacher, to be honest. I don't know who it is, but I'm not so sure that she should have the say either. I did not go through Voc-Rehab to get my child her job. You as parents are absolutely can do it as well. You may want to consider involving Voc-Rehab in job coaching, but that's a golden ticket for Voc-Rehab if you find the job. Some employment opportunities you would want to check to see, will they allow job coaches on site? Some don't want job coaches. You almost have to job coach from afar, which is not always the best case to do. But if you as parents are looking for work for your child, there's several different things you may want to consider. Job coaching, who can do it, when they can do it, and how they can do it. Voc-Rehab is trained on that. We as parents are not, but I did it. But I was a Voc-Rehab vendor, so I kind of knew how to do it. But yeah, parents can find jobs and then turn it over to Voc-Rehab to do the job coaching. I have not heard of a teacher saying that they don't think trying to nix it. That's unfortunate.
So the other question that I had on there was just to mention about guardianship. If they are still, since it's been a few years since I have received my guardianship for my sons, if they are still, it depends on what avenue they can take, either going pro se or through, obtaining your own attorneys for both parties. If they still have the ability to determine whether they want full guardianship or partial guardianship, if they can use all of those avenues as well with either one of those.
I have to disclaim, I don't know. I'm not an expert in that. I got full guardianship in all areas because I felt that was necessary. If you wanted a breakdown of just financial decisions or just medical or full or part, I probably would go to the experts in advance, which I would say the self-help number on the Utah courts system. It was on one of those slides, but if you need it again, I think that's where I would turn. I am not legally trained, so I would not want to misdirect you, but the self-help would know. And again, that's 888-683-0009. I think those are important questions that I'm not trained on. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Totally fine.
Yeah, I would want only the most correct information with something as important as that.
Are there any other questions that you would like to put in the chat or unmute your microphone at this time?
How do we get how can we listen to this and get the copy of the slides?
Sure. So we just put in the chat Debbie's email. So all of our United Angels Foundation members do receive complimentary transition services. You can talk to Debbie, schedule time with her. She'll put together the whole binder and meet with you as many times as possible. I will send out the slides and the recording later today. It takes Zoom a little bit of time to process, but I will send that out to the email list for everyone who is RSVP'd. And if you have a friend or a spouse or partner that wanted to attend but couldn't, we'll have that available for you. And we also do have, just to do a little plug here, we do have a full YouTube channel, United Angels Foundation, that has the majority of our other webinar topics. So we will post this one on there, but I will also send you out the direct link and a copy of the slides.
Do I need to leave email, or would you, if you might not have our email?
If you signed up on the Google form, I have your email. If you did not, and you just click the link that we shared in the Facebook group, go ahead and put your email in the chat right now, and then I will grab it and make sure to send that out to you.
Sylvia, do you mind if I give my number? So if you, any of you are feeling overwhelmed and would just like a little extra hand, text me. I'll get you the binder, and then we'll go through it together as slowly or as quickly as you would like. This was a very quick rundown. It may not do it complete justice of how all the steps necessary. This is not comprehensive. So if you would like a little more hand holding, I'm so happy to do that. Just give me a text and I'll be sure to return your call, and we'll chat and get you all the binder and information that you'd like. And we can do one section at a time if you'd like. In the binder, I also have resources galore, recreation, transportation, other things in the binder as well. So my number, if you wanted it, is 801-318-4617. And texting would be awesome.
Great. Thank you so much, Debbie. I just put your phone number in the chat as well. So that is there. And then I'm collecting some of these emails from you that are putting these in. I'll put my email address in here as well, just in case you have any questions that I can help with. Debbie, any last thoughts? I would just like to thank you for your time and for sharing all of this great knowledge with us. I know it's a lot, you guys, this is a lot of information, but Debbie will help you through each step, as she has already said. And it's always changing too. So there's always little updates here and there. We're happy to help you along your journey. So thank you, Debbie, for sharing this with us. Thank you everyone for joining and being so proactive and being amazing parents and taking this, all these extra steps to set up your family for the future.
Bye.